close your eyes, you hear the latch click. A heavy thud follows. Thick wood, iron bolts. The sound echoes longer than it should. You've just been locked inside. Not a prison, but not quite a home anymore. You're in a plague quarantine house. England, the 17th century. You stand still for a moment, not out of choice, but because stillness is all that's left. Dust floats through a pale beam of light from the small, shuttered window. The room is dry, quiet, still. Outside, the street is empty. But you don't need to look. You already know what's waiting, or not waiting, beyond those doors. You smell vinegar, a sharp sting in the nose, soaked rags placed at the threshold, believed to ward off the pestilence, and something else, the faint, bitter scent of burning rosemary and thyme, herbs tossed into the hearth to purify the air. This is your world now, 4 walls, a low ceiling, and time that stretches endlessly between coughs. You didn't choose this. No one ever does. A neighbor took ill, then a cousin, and now your household is marked. A red X has been painted on your door, a sign to all. Keep out. The watchman passed by at dawn, nailed the shutters closed, left a bundle of bread and barley at the step. He'll return tomorrow. Maybe. You've been told it's for your safety, for the safety of the town. But as night falls and the cold begins to seep under the doorframe, it's hard to feel anything but forgotten. In tonight's story, you won't hear of kings or wars, no battles, no coronations, no famous names etched in stone. Instead, you'll walk through something quieter, harder to record, easier to forget. The ordinary rhythm of surviving the plague, not in a hospital or on the street, but locked inside your own home. You'll learn what it meant to live each day under quarantine, how food was delivered or not, how you spoke to neighbors without ever touching them, the odd little cures families tried when doctors wouldn't come, the whispered prayers, the tapping on walls, the notes tied to string. You'll hear about forgotten things, the vinegar-soaked coins exchanged for bread, the herbs hung from beams in hope, not certainty, the sound of distant bells tolling for others. There was no hero's welcome for those who survived, no ceremony for those who didn't. But behind each bolted door were real lives, quietly enduring, quietly vanishing. By the end of this video, you'll understand what it was like to wait, to care for the sick without supplies, to watch time slip by between candles, coughs, and cautious hope. There's no drama here, just the soft ache of living slowly, the ordinary bravery of those history forgot. So rest with us, if you'd like. Let the shutters close. Let the latch settle back into place. Let yourself drift into their world. And out of this one, welcome to Boring History for Sleep. If you enjoy slow, immersive stories from the forgotten corners of the past, and if you like to drift into sleep with quiet, human moments of history, please like this video and subscribe. We release new episodes just like this every week, and they only get sleepier. Now, lie back. The air is still. The coals are low. The door is shut. Let us take you back to life behind the quarantine walls. Inside the sealed door, you didn't see his face, only the edge of his glove, the iron hinge, the back of his coat as he turned and walked away. The watchman didn't speak. He never does. He only shuts the door and bolts it from the outside. The sound of the iron sliding into place was not loud, but it filled the whole house. A deep, final sound. Then silence. Your mother's hand goes to her mouth. Your younger sister is already crying, half hiding behind her apron. Your father doesn't move at all. He only stares at the floor. The old dog in the corner growls once, then settles again by the hearth. You're inside now, and outside is gone. No bells, no carts, no birds, just dust in the sunlight, drifting slowly through the thickened air. The room is narrow and long, walls whitewashed but worn in places. 2 small windows, shuttered and nailed. No light comes through them now. A low ceiling, the wood beams above darkened with years of smoke and candle soot. A ladder leading to a loft where the youngest sleep. 1 table, 2 chairs, 1 bench. The hearth sits in the center like a half-dead heart. Ashes gray, smoke barely rising. Someone has hung rosemary and thyme from a string overhead. Brown and dry, the air smells faintly of vinegar, like old wine left too long. And underneath it, something else, something still and heavy, the weight of too much stillness. On the table, a cloth-wrapped loaf of bread, crust hard, interior already crumbling. Beside it, a jug of water, 2 apples, a wedge of old cheese, with the edge beginning to curl, a stack of firewood by the hearth. Not much, only a few nights' worth. A tin basin for washing, a chipped chamber pot pushed under the bench, a few buckets, empty now, but ready, just in case. Your little brother pokes at the edge of the shutter, whispering, "Can they still see us?" No one answers. No one knows. Someone coughs in the corner. Not loud, just once, but it scrapes through the air like a blade. You sit on the floor. The boards are cold, and you notice, for the first time, how loud breathing sounds when no one speaks. Time thickens. There is no clock, only the slight tilt of sunlight from a crack near the roofline. You think back, it was just 2 days ago, maybe 3, when Mrs. Fenton down the lane took ill. Her door was marked the next morning, then the miller's boy, then the tanner's wife, and now, your family. No one tells you how long it will last, only that no one enters and no one leaves. Each step creaks louder than you remember. Each whisper feels too large. Even laughter, when it comes, feels like something dangerous. You try to count how many loaves are in the larder, how much barley, how many apples, how long water will last, before someone must lower the bucket from the upstairs window and pray it's filled by dawn. The baby stirs in the cradle. The floorboards groan as your father finally sits down, rubbing his knees, looking nowhere. He takes out a knife, not for defense, not for use, just for the comfort of holding it. It's what men do when there's nothing left to do. Your mother lights a small candle, even though it's not yet dark. The flame flickers in the low air, soft and gold. Her face looks older in the light. Outside, the world has gone hushed. There are no footsteps in the lane, no gossip at the pump, no one calling for bread, or eggs, or milk. Just stillness. The kind of stillness that doesn't feel gentle, the kind that feels like being forgotten. You sit by the shutter and listen, not for voices, but for anything: wind, birds, carts, anything to remind you there's something beyond this room. But there's only the creak of beams above, the baby shifting in its sleep, and the sound of your sister's soft weeping, face turned to the wall. No one wants to say it, but everyone is thinking it. Some who enter quarantine never leave. You close your eyes for a moment, trying to remember what fresh air smells like, what sunlight feels like on your skin, what your neighbor's laugh sounded like 2 days ago, what your own voice sounds like when you're not whispering. It's not fear, exactly. Not yet. It's the quiet, the wait, the sudden slowness of time that unsettles you most. This is your house, but it feels different now. Smaller, heavier, and the latch is locked. The slow hours of isolation. Time folds into itself inside the sealed house. Outside, the world rushes forward, but here, it crawls. The heavy tick of a battered clock on the wall is louder than it should be. Each tick, a reminder. Each talk, a small shock. The candle on the table melts slowly, a tear of wax tracing the curve of the holder before falling to the wood below. Shadows stretch and shrink with the flame's soft flicker. They twist on the walls, moving like restless spirits. No one speaks unless they must. Silence fills the gaps between heartbeats. The children have learned to find small worlds inside these walls. A threadbare rag becomes a puppet dancing in tiny hands. A shard of broken pottery is a treasure, its edges carefully traced. The youngest make forts from blankets, their giggles muffled beneath the weight of the quiet. The elders sit with bowed heads, hands folded or clenched, faces smoothed by prayer or worn by exhaustion. Some close their eyes for hours, drifting in and out of sleep, as if time itself is a slow river carrying them downstream. There is a rhythm here, but it's not natural. It's forced, measured out in breaths, in the slow drip of wax, in the occasional cough that rattles the chest like a distant warning. The cough is the cruelest sound. It cuts through the stillness, sharp and raw. Each time it happens, heads lift, eyes meet. A silent question passing between them. Is this the moment when everything changes? You watch your family slowly shift, not just in body, but in spirit. The brightness in their eyes dims, replaced by something quieter, something heavy. You catch the tremble in your mother's hand as she pours water, the slight stagger in your father's step as he moves to sit by the fire. There are no words for what you feel, no way to comfort, no way to explain, just this endless, watching silence. Minutes stretch into hours, hours into days. You trace the grain in the wooden table, count the knots in the floorboards, try to remember the sound of the wind before the windows were nailed shut. Even sleep is uneasy. The mind drifts to places it shouldn't, to futures that might never be. Whispers flit like shadows. Did you hear about the others? Do you think it's near? Will we ever get out? But no answers come. Only the slow drip of time, the slow change in faces, the slow fading of life behind the sealed door. The house breathes with you. The fire sputters, gasps, then flares. Again, your heart beats, steady but uncertain. You lean back against the wall, the rough plaster cool against your skin. Outside, the world spins without you. Inside, you exist in the space between each tick of the clock, in the darkening shadow of the candle flame, in the quiet, heavy breath of a family locked away from the world, meals through the window. Outside the thick wooden door, footsteps pause, then recede. No one crosses the threshold. The world stays beyond the barred windows, and all contact is measured, cautious. Food arrives like a whisper, quiet, deliberate. A simple bundle left on the windowsill, just out of reach. No hands meet, no voices exchanged. Black bread, dense and coarse, wrapped in linen, stained by time. It smells faintly of smoke and grain, of earth and sun, hard edges cracked and softened by days stored in cold, dark places. A small bowl of onion broth, thin but warm. The onions float like amber jewels, their scent sharp and sweet. The steam rises slowly, curling into the still air, promising comfort even in its simplicity. Slices of old cheese, pale and crumbly, salty from the cellar's chill. Not fresh, but enough to ease the gnawing hunger, to keep the body quiet a little longer. A wooden token waits in return, rough-hewn and worn smooth by many hands, dipped in vinegar and passed through cracks in the wood. An exchange of trust between the living and the locked away. There is no conversation, no thanks, no greetings, only the soft thud of feet retreating into the distance. Inside, you unwrap the meal slowly. The bread breaks with a hollow crack, crumbly and dry. You taste the bitterness of stale crust and the faint sweetness hidden inside. The broth is thin, but each sip warms the cold from your throat. It is not enough to satisfy hunger, but enough to keep despair at bay. Cheese melts slightly on your tongue, salty and sharp, a reminder of better days. Hunger grows inside the room, not urgent, not wild, but steady and slow, a dull ache that settles in the bones and lingers beneath the skin. It is hunger that never screams. It whispers, quietly persistent. You notice the weight of it with each breath, a companion to the silence. Meals through the window become rituals, a momentary connection to the outside world, fragile and fleeting. You watch the window with quiet hope, waiting for the next arrival, the next package, left like a secret. Sometimes a scrap of cloth, a note folded small and worn, slips alongside the food. Words scratched in hurried script, barely legible, a message from neighbors, from strangers, from someone who remembers. Inside, the room feels colder after the meal is eaten. The warmth of the broth fades. The breadcrumbs scatter like tiny memories on the rough wooden table. Yet you eat slowly, deliberately, honoring the fragile gift. Each bite, a small act of survival, a quiet rebellion against the stillness. Outside, the world continues without you. But here, inside the sealed house, life clings to these moments of shared sustenance. The window frames more than just food. It holds stories of kindness in a time of fear, of human connection strained but not broken. You place the empty bowl and crumb-strewn cloth back on the sill, waiting for it to be taken away. The hunger remains, soft and steady, but so does the fragile hope. Sickness in the house, At first, the signs are subtle, almost easy to dismiss. A heaviness that drapes over the body like a thick cloak, fatigue that seeps into the bones, making each breath feel like a slow effort. Sweat beads on the brow despite the chill in the air, cold and clammy, leaving the skin slick and damp. Eyes grow heavy, dull, and ache with a persistent, quiet pain, deep behind the eyes, as if the very sockets throb. The house, once filled with whispered hope, now shifts under a heavier weight. From the corner room comes the first sounds, sharp, ragged, unbearable. A body retching over a wooden bucket, the dry heaves echoing off the stone walls. The sound cuts through the stillness, raw and unfiltered. A child moans softly from a narrow bed nearby. The soft, plaintive noise, barely a whisper, but heavy with fear and weakness. The tension in the air grows thick, settling over the household like a suffocating fog. Voices fall silent, footsteps slow, and the routine hush becomes a tense vigil. Desperation creeps in, gentle but insistent. Hands clutch small bundles of crushed herbs, bitter leaves, and dried flowers, ground into powders or steeped in lukewarm water. Cold cloths are pressed to burning foreheads, soaked again and again with water tinged by vinegar or sour milk. The coolness offers brief relief, a fleeting reprieve from the fever's relentless burn. Strange prayers rise, whispered and trembling, carried on breaths shallow and uneven. In corners and doorways, murmured pleas to saints, to gods, to any force that might listen. Hands fold tightly, fingers entwined, eyes closed against the quiet dread. Death feels like a shadow that lingers just beyond sight, never quite stepping fully into the room, but never far away. It breathes softly in the corners, patient and waiting. There is a quiet respect in the way the household holds its breath, a stillness born not of peace, but of fear. No desperate cries or frantic movements, only the careful, reverent silence of those who know the fragility of life in this moment. The sick rest between sweat and shiver, caught in a liminal space where recovery and loss hang side by side. The walls seem to lean inward, pressing closer as the hours drag on. The house itself feeling smaller, heavier. The weight of waiting grows, neither hope nor despair fully claiming the space. Instead, a hush, a respectful dread that wraps the household tight. Through the fog of pain and quiet prayers, you sense the unspoken truth. Here, sickness is not just an enemy, but a visitor that changes everything. And still, the house waits, breath held for what the next day will bring. Strange cures and superstitions, the air inside the quarantine house hangs heavy with the acrid scent of burning herbs. Bundles of lavender, rosemary, and sage smolder quietly in shallow pans, smoke curling upward like wisps of protection. The sharp, herbal aroma is meant to chase away the invisible poison, the miasma, that folk believe carries the plague. Faces hidden behind vinegar-soaked cloth masks move carefully through the rooms, breathing in the pungent, sour smell meant to purify the air before it reaches their lungs. The vinegar's sting on the skin and eyes is a constant reminder of the danger lurking just beyond the windows, in corners and on tables. Half-cut onions sit, their pungent flesh exposed to the air. They are believed to absorb the bad air, the invisible enemy causing fever and death. The strong, sharp scent fills the room, overpowering the dank smell of sickness and fear. Hands, rough and trembling, apply poultices, thick pastes of crushed herbs, clay, and animal fats, pressed onto aching limbs or swollen skin. These crude remedies are believed to draw out the poison, to pull the illness away from the body. Bloodletting is a grim ritual, practiced with shaky hands and sharp knives, meant to balance the humors and cleanse the body. Veins are cut, and dark, thick blood pools slowly into basins, a desperate hope that removing this life's essence might stave off death. Whispers fill the rooms, old prayers, chants, and incantations passed down through generations. Elders murmur ancient words, calling upon saints, angels, or spirits to protect the afflicted. Each whispered ritual is a fragile thread of hope in a world where reason and science have yet to pierce the darkness. Superstitions mingle with fear. Rabbits, feet, charms hung from doorways, and circles drawn with chalk on floors to ward off evil. Every action, no matter how strange, is an attempt to grasp some control over the uncontrollable. The house becomes a theater of old beliefs and desperate experiments, where logic bends beneath the weight of sorrow and the need to survive. Hope rides on the smoke of burning herbs and the scent of vinegar, on the touch of poultices and the cut of a blade. In these strange cures, you can feel the pulse of human resilience, a fierce determination to fight, even in the face of an invisible enemy. And so, day after day, the rituals continue, a delicate dance between ancient wisdom and modern despair. Messages through walls. Inside the sealed quarantine house, silence settles like dust, thick and heavy. Yet, even in this forced isolation, human connection finds its way through the barriers. Families tap gently on the wooden walls, rhythmic knocks echoing back and forth, a secret language of concern and reassurance. The sounds are soft, deliberate, a conversation carried not by voice, but by the pulse of fingertips against timber and plaster. Neighbors' hands press against the other side, matching the taps, answering without words. Outside, stones tied to scraps of parchment dangle from ropes or slip silently from rooftops. Messages flutter down like fragile birds, landing near the doorstep of another quarantined family. These notes carry news of health, warnings of fresh sickness, or sometimes simple words of comfort. We are thinking of you. No one dares breach the space between the houses. No hand reaches out for another. Instead, glances pass through cracks in boarded windows, eyes meeting briefly, sharing the weight of fear and hope without a single touch. Across the narrow alleyways, voices are hushed or completely absent. Instead, small tokens, baskets of food, bundles of firewood, are left carefully in the shadows, placed just out of reach and retrieved when the watchers are sure the path is clear. A community grows in these quiet exchanges, forged from necessity and care. Though walls and doors divide them, the people inside these houses are far from alone. The coded knocks become a heartbeat in the stillness, a reminder that behind every sealed door is a family, a story, a life struggling to hold on. In the dark, the flicker of candlelight illuminates faces pressed close to windows, waiting for the faint sound of a familiar knock, the slip of a note, the silent presence of another soul reaching out through the distance. The boundaries that keep them apart cannot stop the human need to connect, to check, to comfort. Messages travel unseen paths, through walls, across rooftops, down empty streets, bridging the silence with hope and quiet strength. Even in isolation, they are part of something larger, a fragile web of care woven from whispered taps and carefully dropped words, the sounds outside. Behind the sealed door, the world outside seems distant, yet its echoes seep in, carried by the wind through cracks and under thresholds. The sharp, mournful toll of church bells cuts through the heavy air, marking each life lost to the plague. Their ringing is slow, deliberate, somber rhythm that counts out the days and the dead. Sometimes a shout breaks the silence, a hurried voice calling across empty streets, sharp and urgent, then fading like a ghost. Horses' hooves clatter on cobblestones, steady and tireless, as carts creak heavily by, burdened with goods or bodies alike. The clatter of wheels and clip-clop of hooves remind those inside that life continues beyond their walls, even if their own world has come to a standstill. The market square, once bursting with voices and bartering, now lies quiet and abandoned. Stalls stand empty, colors faded under gray skies. No chatter, no laughter, no calls of merchants hawking wares, just a silence so deep it seems unnatural, almost waiting. This eerie quietness outside contrasts starkly with the claustrophobic stillness within. Normal life pulses faintly beyond the walls, a distant heartbeat out of reach. Yet every sound, the bell, the shout, the cart's creak, pierces the hush inside, a reminder of what is lost and what remains. The living move on, though time has slowed, weighed down by fear and grief. Inside, the quiet is thick, oppressive, broken only by coughs or whispered prayers. Outside, the world carries on, haunted by absence and waiting for the day when doors will finally open again. The bells toll for souls carried beyond, for lives forever changed, and for those who listen, locked inside, their hearts heavy with longing. Night in the quarantine house. When night falls in the quarantine house, the darkness is unlike any other. It sinks in heavy and deep, swallowing the narrow rooms and the quiet figures huddled inside. Without the usual city sounds to break, the stillness, the night seems endless. A vast, swallowing blackness, pressing close against the boarded windows and sealed doors. A single candle flickers, its fragile flame dancing shadows across pale, drawn faces. The light wavers, casting shapes that twist and stretch along the cracked walls. Ghosts in the gloom. Each flicker illuminates eyes heavy with exhaustion. A restless mind barely at ease, searching for peace. The faint scent of herbs burned earlier lingers faintly, mingling with the damp cold that creeps through every corner. Wrapped in threadbare blankets, family members lie close, the warmth from each body a small defense against the chill that seeps through stone and wood. The quiet here is profound, not the comforting silence of a peaceful night, but the heavy, expectant silence of those waiting for dawn, for news, for some shift in the endless hours. Breathing becomes a shared rhythm, soft inhales and exhales sinking in the darkness, each breath a gentle reminder you are not alone, close enough to feel the rise and fall of chests, the whispered snore of a child, the shallow sigh of an elder. Sleep comes unevenly, fractured by coughs, by dreams that feel sharper than waking life. Nightmares slip in, cloaked in shadow. The pounding of feet in the street, the eerie tolling of bells, the faces of those lost, floating just beyond reach. In the quiet, these dreams feel more real than the daylight hours, more tangible than the stale air trapped indoors. Some lie awake for long stretches, eyes open in the dark, staring into the flickering candlelight, their minds drifting between memory and fear. Others drift in and out of uneasy sleep, pulled between hope and despair. The night stretches on, slow and relentless. Time bends here, folding over itself in the thick darkness, and through it all, the house breathes with its inhabitants, their quiet, shared struggle, kept alive by the faintest light, the softest sounds, and the slow passage of a night that will never quite feel ordinary. Who is left behind? Not everyone survives. In the quiet stillness of the quarantine house, the truth settles like dust, heavy, unavoidable. The faces around you grow fewer as days pass, some fading into silence, others gone without ceremony. Families mourn in ways shaped by fear and desperation. There are no grand funerals here, no open graves lined with flowers and prayers. Instead, grief is swallowed quietly, held in the tight spaces between whispered words and tears shed alone. Outside, the marks appear, a painted cross, a red smear on the door frame, signs to warn the living to keep away. Names carved or scratched into wood become fragile memorials, tokens of lives once vibrant, now reduced to symbols on splintered surfaces. The rituals of mourning are stripped to their barest forms. Bodies may be left unburied for days, collected by distant hands, wearing gloves and masks, taken away swiftly and silently. The living shrink back, the fear of contagion outweighing even the need for farewell. Inside, the loneliness deepens. To be one of the last is to carry a weight heavier than the plague itself. Rooms once filled with chatter and movement now echo with silence, the absence more palpable than any sound. The walls seem to hold the memories of those who've gone, their laughter, their pain, their final moments. And in that absence, the survivors wrestle with a haunting solitude, a constant reminder of what has been lost. Each day stretches longer when you are alone, each breath a reminder of the fragility of life. Hope mingles with despair, and the future feels like a fragile thread ready to snap. Yet even in this desolation, the human spirit flickers. Memories become a form of resistance. The act of remembering those lost is a quiet rebellion against oblivion, names scratched in wood, the faint scent of burning herbs for the dead, the slow turning of a weathered page in a prayer book. These small acts become the fragile bridge between the living and those left behind. In the hush of the quarantine house, surrounded by absence and fear, the story is not only of death, but of the enduring hold of memory. Release. After weeks sealed inside, the day finally arrives. The heavy door, once a barrier and a prison, creaks slowly open. A sliver of light spills inside, unfamiliar and almost too bright after the dim, stale air of confinement. You step out, hesitating at the threshold, the cold breeze brushing your skin like a shock. The world feels different, sharper, louder, and yet oddly distant. The familiar sights and sounds are there, but everything has shifted, as if time paused and moved on without you. Neighbors gather at the edges of the street, their eyes wide with cautious curiosity. They watch but do not approach. The fear that once locked you in still lingers in their gazes, unseen but heavy. You breathe deeply, the fresh air filling lungs that have grown accustomed only to recycled breaths. It tastes strange and new, and for a moment it carries both relief and a weight of sorrow. Your body aches from the stillness, the lack of sunlight, the nights spent listening to silence and whispered prayers. But it is your mind that bears the deeper wounds, etched with the memories of loss, the faces that vanished behind the sealed walls. The world outside has moved on, but you carry the stillness of those days inside. The vibrant life of the street seems faded, the laughter tempered by caution, the once bustling market now subdued. You notice how the streets hold echoes of absence, shops boarded up, doors marked with the signs of quarantine, gardens left untended, and yet there is something fragile stirring beneath the quiet, the slow, steady pulse of survival. The release from the house is not a return to what was. It is a crossing into something new, a changed world, shaped by fear and endurance. You walk forward, but with the knowledge that the days behind the closed door have changed you forever. Neighbors avert their eyes, unsure how to bridge the gap between the locked-in silence and the open streets. Words feel inadequate, gestures awkward, yet beneath the distance, a shared humanity remains, fragile but unbroken. As you take your first steps into the light, you carry the story of those weeks of isolation, resilience, sorrow, and hope. You are both survivor and witness, marked by what you endured and what you lost. The door closes behind you with a soft finality, but the journey ahead has just begun. What history forgot? The pages of history are filled with names of kings, generals, and nobles, figures whose deeds shaped kingdoms and battles, but the countless souls who lived through the plague, locked away behind boarded doors, often remain anonymous shadows in the margins of those same pages. No records hold their names, only cold numbers listed in parish scrolls, tallying the lost and the spared, grim statistics marking days of death and days of survival, but never the faces, voices, or stories of those who endured. Stone markers stand in cemeteries, worn by time and weather, bearing only initials or dates, erasing individuality with every passing year. Yet beneath those unadorned stones lie the stories of people who waited in silence, who cared for the sick when hope was scarce, who carried burdens invisible to the eyes of history. They were the mothers wrapping fevered children in damp cloths, the fathers dragging coals from the hearth to keep the fire alive, the sisters who whispered prayers into the dark night. Every breath they took, every quiet act of kindness was a small rebellion against despair, a refusal to surrender even as the world fell away. These everyday heroes wore no crowns and left no monuments, but their courage filled the spaces between the walls, in the stillness of locked rooms, in the whispered comfort offered through cracked doors. Their lives were etched not in grand chronicles, but in the slow passage of time marked by aching muscles, hushed tears, and the steady rhythm of care. History's gaze passed over them, focusing instead on the distant thunder of armies and politics, forgetting the weight of the waiting, the strength it took to endure the unknown. But in their silence, they held a fierce dignity, an unspoken testament to survival. The hands that prepared simple meals, that cleaned and soothed, that laid the dead to rest, carried on the world's fragile pulse. Though forgotten by history's loudest voices, their resilience shaped the course of recovery. Without their quiet endurance, the stories of survival and renewal would not exist at all. They remind us that history is not only made by those who wield power, but by those who live through its darkest hours, tending the flames of hope when all else seems lost. Close your eyes once more. Imagine the shutters slowly closing, sealing away the day's harsh light, the fears and the waiting. The silence deepens, wrapping around you like a soft blanket, still and calm. Time moves differently here, unhurried, gentle, folding itself around quiet moments and fading memories. Remember the strength it took to endure, the quiet courage that never shouted but simply held on. Those locked doors, the whispered prayers, the small acts of care, unseen by history's grand stage. Now, you are far from that dark house, safe and warm in your own place. Let your body sink into rest, your breath slow and steady. The world outside may still turn, but here, there is only peace. Let the heartbeat of the past become a lullaby, soft, steady, unbroken. As you drift, let go of all the worries, the loneliness, the weight of survival. You are cradled by time itself, wrapped in the quiet dignity of those who came before. Let the shutters close and sleep through the silence. Thank you for joining me on this quiet journey into the forgotten corners of history, where time slows, the past gently breathes, and stories long tucked away in dusty books or fading memory are softly revived, like the fluttering of old pages in a breeze. It's not always the bold, thunderous events that shape us most. Sometimes it's the subtle echoes, the minor chords in the vast symphony of time that carry the most lasting resonance. Together, we've wandered through eras and empires, through everyday lives and extraordinary moments that seldom earn a line in a textbook, yet hold a special kind of beauty for those who pause to notice. Whether we explored a quiet village swept by forgotten revolutions, or followed the footsteps of someone history barely remembered, a lighthouse keeper who watched the tides more faithfully than any general commanded armies, or a postmistress who held the heartbeat of a town in her hands. I hope you found a space here to exhale, to be still, to drift gently away from the noise of today. History, in many ways, is a kind of lullaby. It has rhythms, patterns, and soft refrains that, when told slowly and with care, can calm even the most restless thoughts. That is why I created this channel, not to bombard you with facts, dates, or grand theories, but to offer a kind of historical shelter, a place to find peace in the long ago, to rest in the stories of those who came before, and to feel, in some gentle way, less alone. If you found peace here, if these whispers of the past soothed you or gave you even a moment's rest, I invite you to gently like this video. It helps others find their way to this quiet little corner of the internet, and perhaps, like you, find some comfort here too. A small click, a soft nod to say, yes, this mattered. Yes, this helped. And if you'd like to hear more gentle tales of quiet lives, of slow moments in far-off times, of the little things that once meant the world to someone, please consider subscribing to Boring History for Sleep. It's a name chosen with a smile, but it speaks the truth of what we offer. Not adrenaline, not drama, not a spotlight, but a slow, meandering path through time, told in a voice meant to ease you gently into rest. Here, boredom is a gift, not the frustration of having nothing to do, but the relief of not needing to do anything. In this space, you don't need to learn or retain or analyze. You can simply be. Let the names and places roll over you like waves on a quiet shore. Let the clock tick softly. Let the images of cobbled streets, candlelit rooms, ancient forests, and dusty parchment carry you gently away. Maybe you listened while lying in bed, your eyes heavy, your breathing deepening with each passing minute. Maybe you drifted in and out of the story, catching bits here and there, the sound of an old clockmaker at work, the quiet patience of a monastery library, the winding path of a medieval traveler. That's perfectly fine. In fact, it's the whole point. There's no quiz at the end, no need to stay awake, no obligation to remember who did what, in which century. Let it all go. Let it slip away like the remnants of a dream. In some ways, the stories we tell here are not just about the past. They're also about presence, the act of listening, the act of surrendering to a slower rhythm, to quiet detail, to words spoken not to excite, but to comfort, to remember that even in chaos, there were always places of peace, that even in ages defined by war or plague or upheaval, there were gardens and kitchens, lullabies and books, love letters and slow walks at dusk, that in every time someone, somewhere, closed their eyes and let the day go, just as you are doing now. When you subscribe, you're not just adding another channel to your list. You're making a small promise to yourself, a promise to return to peace now and then, to seek quiet, to listen, to rest. Each time you visit, you'll find a new story waiting, not loud or urgent, but patient and calm, like an old friend waiting by a fire. Sometimes we'll talk about forgotten queens or lost cities, but often we'll simply sit with a story of a child growing up in Victorian London, of a sailor who dreamed of orchards while crossing the sea, of a letter never sent but kept in a drawer for decades. These stories may not shake the foundations of history, but they may settle something inside you. I want this space to be something you look forward to, a gentle ritual, a safe harbor at the end of the day. Perhaps you make tea and turn on the video as the sun sets. Perhaps you let it play softly beside you as you fall asleep. Perhaps you listen while you're journaling or watching rain trace the window panes. However you use it, I'm grateful you're here. Truly, thank you for letting me speak into your quiet. Thank you for giving these forgotten stories a moment of your time, even if only on the edge of sleep. It is a rare and beautiful thing in this fast and noisy world to share stillness with someone, and I hope, in some way, it has helped you find a little of your own. So now, with the story told, and the night deepening around us, I will say again, thank you. Thank you for your presence, for your open ears and open heart. Thank you for spending these gentle minutes with me. If the tale brought you any peace at all, if it let you soften, slow down, or simply breathe, then I'm grateful. If you feel your eyelids growing heavy, that is exactly as it should be. Please like this video if you'd like more stories told in this way. Slowly, with care, with warmth. Your support helps us continue, and it lets others know that this kind of gentle storytelling still matters. And if you haven't yet, I warmly invite you to subscribe to Boring History for Sleep. New tales will be waiting for you whenever you need them, like a soft light left on in a quiet room. And now, dear listener, sleep well. You've done enough today. There is nothing more required of you. Let your mind drift. Let your thoughts untangle. Let the weight slip from your shoulders. You are safe. You are held. The past is behind you, and the night lies ahead. Until next time, rest easy. I'll be here when you return. Good night. Oh, and before we truly drift off for the night, let me say it one more time. Thank you. Truly, sincerely, and sleepily. If I could send you a handwritten thank you note by candlelight, tied with twine and a wax seal, preferably with a tiny sleeping cat crest, I would. But since the 18th century has sadly not yet restored its postal service, this digital gratitude will have to do. You could be watching fast-paced crime documentaries or videos of raccoons stealing snacks, but instead, you chose a slow ramble through obscure history told in the vocal equivalent of chamomile tea. That says a lot about your taste. Excellent, obviously, and your commitment to relaxation. For that, I am honored. And let's be honest, we all need a little boredom now and then. The good kind, the gentle kind, the I may or may not be drooling on my pillow now kind. So, if you're still awake, you might be a night owl or a historian in disguise. Either way, you're among friends here. Before the final yawn sneaks up on you, don't forget to tap that like button gently, like you're closing an old library book. And if you subscribe, I promise more tales that are just the right amount of uneventful to help you snooze. No action scenes, no explosions, just soft stories and sleepy vibes. Until we meet again in another tale that goes nowhere fast. Thank you for being here. You've earned this rest. May your dreams be historical, your pajamas cozy, and your blankets slightly too warm in the best way. Now, really, lights out. Good night. Again and again. Okay, now I'm done. Maybe.